What is noise pollution? Noise pollution consists of noises that are harmful and caused primarily by human actions that can impact humans and any wildlife. We also can mention that it also impacts marine animals. It is considered noise pollution when it exceeds 65 decibels. So, noise pollution is a concept that many might have not heard of just because they have heard of other types of pollutions and not anything that has to do with noise. And in this case, there are some noises that are extremely harmful for different animals. And since we are studying marine animals and marine biology, we decided to focus on our project on how noise pollution affects marine animals. Now that we have an understanding of what noise pollution is, let us talk about the impacts that it has on marine animals. So, many of you might think of examples or know how it impacts humans, but many of you might have not thought about how it impacts marine animals. The noise can disturb the communication that happens between different sea animals. Sonar devices used to map the seafloor or even vessels can cause a lot of noise/disturbance. There are other examples of underwater operations or construction going on or vessels that you hear that to us might not impact us as much since we don't hear it, we're not in the ocean, but it does impact a lot of the animals there, the animals living there, the animals that are trying to communicate. Perhaps that communication can be vital for their survival, so it does impact the animals. Now we are going to list a couple of examples of noise pollution and how it impacts humans and marine animals. So for humans, we have airports, traffic, construction sites, animals, clubs, so nightlife. And then for marine animals, we have ships, vessels, construction, sonar devices, underwater operations, and there are so many more examples that we could have listed. But we will go in depth into our paper about those examples. But these are some examples of how it does impact humans and marine animals. Like, for example, sometimes there are underwater operations that are occurring, and it does disturb the animals as they are trying to communicate. And for humans, airports are really noisy. Traffic sometimes can get very noisy, and then construction sites.
The ways in which we can reduce noise pollution is by making sure that the ships and vessels that are within the oceans and waters are maintaining laws and regulations that go along with reducing the noise pollution. So some of these could include modifying propellers and vessels and hulls to make sure that they're getting the regular maintenance and they are not going over a certain amount of noise. Using vibrationally isolating machinery could also help that. And then also implementing like ship speed restrictions so that similar to how we have speed limits out with cars, the boats aren't going over a certain speed. And therefore, if they don't get over that certain speed, the boats make less noise and can cause less damage to the species that are underwater and having to deal with the noise pollution. And also, along with the lower amounts of speed, that also will incentivize a lower amount of vessels and ships in the water at once. And therefore, that will lower the amount of noise as well because there's less action and less movement happening within the water at one time.
As mentioned above in our Who Does It Impact section, we know that marine animals rely heavily on sound as a method of communication. Since sound travels at a much faster rate in water compared to air, we see noise pollution becoming an ongoing issue. Therefore, we must acknowledge the problem and recognize the harm that is being brought to these marine animals. Each species' sensitivity threshold is different, so this problem can be seen in varying degrees of severity according to the specific species. Not only is noise pollution bringing changes in things like schooling behaviors, feeding behaviors, and even reducing marine populations and certain breeding habits, it has also begun to cause changes in the human food chain. Studies in 2018 found that some commercial fishing markets dropped by a whopping 80% due to larger fish leaving certain areas because of noise pollution. Seeing as how this does not only affect marine animals living underwater, but it also bleeds into the human food chain on land, I feel that it may be easier for people to fully grasp the nature of this problem, since it also affects them and not only these marine animals.